Alright, bear with me, Carol, because I can't seem to get my projector to show up, so I'm just going to start from the beginning, and you unfortunately won't be able to see my slide deck. So, stories have power. They delight, enchant, touch, teach, recall, inspire, motivate, challenge. If you want to make a point or raise an issue, tell a story. Stories are powerful. They help us connect emotionally. They also help differentiate us and allow us to not be seen as a commodity. And if you think about that, that's really important in today's marketplace. Our customers have so many different options that they can choose, so many different businesses that they can work with. Why do they choose to work with us? What differentiates us or sets us apart from our competition? Stories and the ability to connect. Stories can also be incredibly motivating and moving. They can inspire people to take action. A great example of this would be the Ice Bucket Challenge. I'm sure many of you saw it, maybe some of you even participated in it. The Ice Bucket Challenge started simply with a gentleman named Peter who had ALS and really wanted to raise awareness about the impact it has on himself, on the people that have it, as well as their family and their friends. And so he did a video and had an Ice Bucket Challenge as part of that. That video spread like wildfire, and shortly thereafter was just exploding the feeds on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. It was everywhere. Celebrities were joining in on it. Even past presidents got involved. And just with this one person telling their story, the ALS Association raised $88.5 million. $88.5 million. That's incredibly impressive. They also had some of the most Twitter tweets out there. Over 4.4 million tweets about the Ice Bucket Challenge. And it started with one story. So stories are powerful. Stories also help us connect. Take a great example of this would be my friend Rich. He and his wife basically opened up a LearningRx franchise after helping their daughter. She had gone through, struggled all throughout school, and they really kind of were at wit's end, and they didn't know what else to do. So someone had told them about LearningRx, and if you're not familiar with it, it's all about brain training and helping improve your short-term and your long-term skills as well as your processing speeds. And they do that in a variety of ways. So Rich and his wife learned about LearningRx, gave it a try, and they had huge results. In fact, their daughter, who hated to read, they were now having to go in and tell her at 11:30 at night and saying, "Hey Katie, gotta go to bed. You know, you've been reading too long." So it worked for them. And it was interesting when I was talking to Rich and I first started working with him, I said, "You know, why did you start this business?" And he told me the story, and I said, "That's incredible. I can only imagine being a parent on the other side of the table." And hearing that story, I hope you're sharing it with them, because that would have a really big impact, right? On whether or not they chose to put their child into LearningRx. When they can resonate, they can connect and say, "You know what? Rich was just where I'm at. He was struggling with some of the same things I'm struggling with, and look at what happened. He built a business on it. He opened a business," right? Stories help us connect. Stories also make us human. I think sometimes it's so easy for us to say, all right, we're going to keep our personal side here and our professional life here. We're not going to let them cross or intersect, because we don't want our clients to see us as not being professional. We want it to have a very business image that we want to project. But what we forget is that people don't do business with businesses. people do business with people. And so it's really important to show what makes us human, what makes us vulnerable, because that's how we are able to build deeper, stronger relationships. Now, this is a picture of my two boys, taken quite a few years ago, but if you've had boys, you know that they get into a lot of trouble typically, or at least mine do, and a lot of interesting stories that I have to tell based on things that they have done. So this is a picture taken quite a few years ago. Max is the taller one and Sam's the shorter one. And now fast forward to a couple years ago when Sam was 10. He was really struggling with the whole hygiene issue. And, you know, we came to some agreements, came to some terms, and that was he was going to take a shower every other day. Figured that was pretty fair, right? So one day I'm walking down the hall and Sam was just leaving out of the bathroom, and I literally just take my hand and I skim it across his hair as he's walking by. Because, let's face it, this is not my first rodeo, right? I've asked this same question multiple times, and I feel his hair and I say, Sam, what is with your hair? I'm like, did you wash it? He goes, oh, Mom, I totally forgot. Now, because I have boys, the dumbfounded expression that I get on my face, is pretty typical and is probably seen many times throughout the course of the day or conversations with them. And I said, what do you mean you forgot? I said, you were in the shower for over 30 minutes. What were you doing? And he said, you know, Mom, you know what I really need? I said, well, I'm thinking, I have a whole list of things that you need. What do you need? And he goes, I really need a checklist. Dumbfounded face again. A checklist? For what? And he goes, so, you know, when I'm in the shower, then I know what to wash. Dumbfounded look. But Sam, it's not rocket science. You simply start from the top of your head and you work your way down to your feet using soap of some sort. Now, I wish I could say that now that they're 12 and 14, that showers are a lot easier for Sam. But a little update, it's still a struggle, and he still wants to battle with me every day, like, Mom, my hair doesn't look greasy, so I don't need a shower. He kind of forgets about the whole package, right? And unfortunately, the girl thing hasn't pushed him enough yet. But why do I tell you this story? I don't tell you it because I want to talk to you about your hygiene, because it looks like you're all doing pretty well in that department. I bring up this story because it makes us human. Now, those of you that have boys, whether they're little still or they're grown, or those of you who have had brothers or whatever, the story resonates with you. And we're starting to build a connection. We're starting to build a relationship. And that's what stories can do. Now, I'd like to share with you my story. Many of you probably know Ben Olson as Ben Olson. He called me one day and asked me to present at another BNI event. And it was going to be a pretty good-sized group, at least 400 to 500 people. And I got to tell you, I was pretty nervous. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to make this the best presentation ever, right? I spent hours upon hours upon hours making this really professional PowerPoint presentation. And I was just going to imagine how wowed Ben was going to be when he got it. So I told him, hey, I'm going to send this over to you. Would just love to get your feedback. I sent over the video, or sent over, excuse me, the PowerPoint, and he gets it. So I call him and I say, hey, Ben, what'd you think? And he goes, eh. I'm like, eh? I said, what do you mean by that? And he goes, you know, honestly, Carrie, it's really missing something. Missing something. Thinking, I spent hours and hours, like what on earth could it be missing? And he goes, it's missing you. It's missing your personality, your stories. He said, that's what really connects people with you. And I've seen you present a number of times, and when you bring those stories up, people are engaged and they're connected, and you're able to get your message across through those stories. And I don't see any of that in this PowerPoint presentation. And it was at that moment, thank you, Ben, it was at that moment where it was kind of like the light bulb went off, right? I have a marketing business. I do marketing all day long. And I thought, you know what? We really complicate this process. We really complicate our marketing because at the end of the day, it's all about building relationships. And what is the number one way that we can build relationships? Through connections, through telling stories. Because stories are memorable, they're moving, and they're powerful. And I thought, you know what? I've been a storyteller my whole life. No matter what setting I'm in, whether I'm standing in front of a group of people like you, or I'm with my friends, my girlfriends out at night, or with my family, I'm always telling stories. And people remember them. And when I see them the next time, like the story I told you about Sam, I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, oh my gosh, how's your son doing? You know what? I just had the same example with my son. It was so funny. Here's what he did, right? So I started incorporating stories, everyday stories, not just why I got into business, but everyday stories into all aspects of my marketing. And one of the best compliments I ever received was when I was talking to a prospect who had reached out to me via LinkedIn. And he said, you know, let's schedule a time to talk. I want to learn a little bit more about your business. And I don't know, maybe a minute into the conversation, he said, you know, it's really funny. I feel like I already know you. I feel like we've known each other for years because he's been following me on LinkedIn and reading the stories. And my personality shows through with everything that I do. The personality of our company shows through with everything that we do. So stories are powerful. Now, stories aren't new. In fact, I think it kind of runs in our blood, really, because storytelling has been part of our humanity from the beginning of time, from when we had cavemen who really they weren't verbal. They used pictures to tell their stories. And as they evolved, storytellers became some of the most respected people in their tribes and in their clans. In fact, can't you just imagine, a storyteller going out and finding out what was happening, around with the other tribes and reporting back at night around a campfire with everyone fully engaged, listening to what was happening, what was new. Interesting fact, a lot of storytellers, as time evolved, went into and held positions such as priests, judges, and rulers. So storytelling is a part of our humanity. It's really what binds us together. So when does your story begin? Well, if you think about it through the eyes of your prospect, your story begins the first time they hear your name. They see your logo or your website, or maybe even read your About Us page. They're starting to build that story. They have impressions that are forming. And so it's really important that you help them write the right story. And creating a story that they can go and they can tell and share with their friends and their family and bring in more referrals to your business. A great example of this is Boxwater. They do a really good job of explaining their story throughout any of their channels, the marketing channels that they use, as well as interacting with their staff. So I was at the gas station one day and I'm standing in front of this huge case of water. And like any marketing person would do, I thought, it's kind of interesting. I wonder how people choose which bottle of water to get. Because I think truly at the end of the day, they're roughly about the same price point, all within, $1 to $2 or so. And they're probably about the same taste or quality, maybe. So how do you choose? And as I sat there looking at this case of water, one of them in particular stuck out to me. It was a box of water. And the packaging was really simple. It just says, box water is better. So, naturally, I reach in, I grab it out, and as I'm looking at the packaging and the information, I realized that their story is that they're all about sustainability. and having less of a negative impact on our planet, and investing back into our environment and restoring our planet. And so when I went, I looked at their information, it talked about the why cardboard versus plastic, where the water came from, how it was sourced. You go onto their website, the first three words you see are pure, convenient, sustainable. You start clicking around on their website, and guess what it's talking about? It's got pictures of their staff and their employees out in the communities giving back, planting trees. You go to their website, and it talks about how certain percentage, or not their website, their social media channels, certain percentage of each of their sales goes towards planting new trees and identifying new ways to help forests continue to grow. And what's really important for you to know about this story is that it's authentic, right? Wherever you encounter them, you see the same message. It's also aligned from top down, right? So the owner that started this business had a story to tell. His employees now retell that story when they're out in the community, when they're doing local events, when they're giving back. And it's apparent. Everywhere you look, it's the same story. And that's really, really important, is for you to understand, why do you do what you do? And to be able to share that with your customers, with your prospects, with anyone that might interact with you or your company. So let's talk about telling your story. Why do you do what you do? Do your employees know why you started your business and what your story is, what your passion is? I recently read a study that said that only 13% of employees are engaged in their workplace, and they attributed a lot of that to not really feeling like not really knowing what the purpose was behind their company. They're there just doing a job. And so it's really important, not just from growing your business standpoint and for the impact that it had, for the impact on your marketing, it's also important for engagement with your staff and how your company is growing internally as well. So why do you do what you do? Have you shared your story with your customers, with your prospects? Do you know how or what kind of impact your products or services have on your customers? I think oftentimes we often make assumptions about the impact. We might think, oh, you know what, if you go with our marketing services, it's going to save you a ton of time. But if I ask my top clients, why did you choose us? Why do you continue to work with us? Time might not be on the top of their list. It might be something else that I hadn't even thought of. And how cool would that be to incorporate that into your story and to share that message? So I challenge you to think about, why do you do what you do? Whether you've been in business, if you're just new and getting started, and maybe you're exhausted, you're tired, like, oh, when am I going to get over that small business hump? This might help you reconnect to your story, to your why. Or maybe you've been in business for 15 plus years and you can't even remember why you started your business and why you do what you do. It's a great time to reignite that spark and to reconnect your purpose, and then to share it with your staff and with your prospects and your customers and everyone you engage with. When we talk about stories, I'm talking more about your why you got into business, why you do what you do. But there's also those everyday stories, those things that happen to you on a regular basis, those Sam and his shower checklist stories. And there are ways, and I'm going to show you how, there's ways that you can take those stories and incorporate them into your marketing as well. So a great example of this is my husband and I have a cabin in northern Minnesota, and one day we were out walking in the woods, and we're in this, like, my favorite part of the woods, where we've got like these 40-foot tall white pines, right? They're massive. It's like you feel like a dwarf. You're standing there just looking up, and it's just gorgeous, especially when it's snowing, as you see here in this picture. And I look over at my husband and I said, you know what? I have an idea. Now, I should tell you or preface this that phrase makes my clients usually pretty excited. They like to hear that I have new ideas. And it makes my husband cringe and usually involves some sort of eyeball roll and a groan. So he's like, oh, what? Thinking it's going to cost me either time or money or a combination thereof, right? I said, what's your idea? And I said, wouldn't it be cool? We love this area. Wouldn't it be cool to build a tree house out here? You know, and I'm envisioning like this place where we could, you know, drink wine, read books, write books, hang out as a family, play cards, and just watch, you know, nature and be one with nature. And he says, you know, actually, I think that's a pretty good idea. And after I picked my chin up off the floor, I said, really? He goes, yeah, you know, I think once we go back to the cabin, I'm going to start drawing up some plans because, you know, when you think you want to have it right about here, I'm like, yeah, this would be perfect right in between these tall white pines, three tall white pines, whatever. And he's like, all right, well, let's go back to the cabin. So, you know, a couple weeks go by and, you know, he's out there, he's purchased wood, he's out going back and forth on the four-wheeler. And, you know, probably, you know, 8 to 10 weeks later, he said, you know, I'm getting really close to being done with this treehouse, and I think it'd be cool for you to just kind of come out and get a feel for it. So I said, all right, you know, I'm so excited. I can't wait to see this magical treehouse that I had envisioned. We jump on the four-wheeler, we're driving driving out there, and we get about halfway, and Kevin says, you know, before we get there, I just wanted to tell you that, you know, I didn't put the windows in yet. I ordered them, but I didn't put them in yet, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with the door and the roof, but I think you'll get a pretty good idea, you know, of what it's going to look like. Now, for those of you women, sorry, no offense, men, this should have been a sign for me, right? But I'm an eternal optimist, so I'm still in La La Land imagining my magical treehouse. So we get out there. I'm about to get off the four-wheeler and to look up at my magical treehouse. But I need to let you know one thing first. When I was envisioning this treehouse, I was looking at something like this, right? Kind of Swiss Family Robinson type chalet in the woods. And now this picture is a little, you know, intense, right? I didn't quite figure we'd have something this grandiose, but I had some pretty big visions and dreams of what this was going to look like. So you can imagine I'm standing there. I look up, and this is what I see. A little bit of disappointment, not going to lie. For those of you who are not married to a hunter or don't know anything about hunting, this is actually a deer stand, not a magical treehouse. Now, my husband was like, you know, what's going on? Don't you, you know, I'm sure I was probably on the verge of about to cry, right? Like, oh my gosh, this is not what I pictured. And he, you know, he's like, really, you don't like it? And it's like, I said, it's not a treehouse, it's a deer stand. Well, it's kind of multi-purpose. So, my husband was quite pleased. In fact, he was the envy of all of our neighbors up there because they're like, this is the coolest deer stand they've ever seen, and in what a great spot. Now, I'm still awaiting my magical treehouse and hoping someday, whether I have to have the treehouse masters come out and build it or not, I'm still waiting for it. But what I did with this message is I took this story that has nothing to do with marketing, right? Nothing to do with marketing, other than he maybe oversold the deal, right? But I incorporated this into a blog article about the importance of setting client expectations, and how oftentimes when you're working with a new client, they might have a vision or expectations of what they think they're going to get from your products or services that they're purchasing. And you too have expectations and probably a length of time that you know it's going to take to deliver what you said you were going to deliver. And so it's really important to have that conversation up front. So I wrote a blog article about that, and I published that on LinkedIn. So it's one example of how you can take those everyday stories, those hobbies, those interests that you have, and turn them into messages that you can share on your social media channels, your blog, your website, etc. So, where are we going with this? Oh, I hate that transition. Scratch that, Carol. So let me tell you about the fig story. We actually named our business based on what our ultimate goal is. Our ultimate goal is to help our clients build and cultivate deep-rooted, meaningful relationships with their customers so that their customers stay with them. And as they stay with them, the business begins to grow, it begins to branch out. And their customers are so happy with their services that they start telling other people. And they're getting more and more referrals. And that was the vision that I had. So when we did some research, we found out that the wild fig tree in South Africa has the deepest roots of any tree in the world, with roots extending over 465 feet deep. And I thought, wow, that's our story. That's what we want to do. And thus Wild Fig Marketing is born. Our ultimate goal is to help our clients build deeper, stronger, more meaningful relationships. And we do that in a variety of ways. Whether we're creating an email campaign for a client, or we're writing a blog article, we're always thinking about how can we use this to build deep, meaningful relationships and help our customers cultivate those relationships with their customers. So as you can probably tell, I'm pretty passionate about storytelling. And I want to help you. I want to help you craft your story and figure out the best ways to share your story. So I've got something special for you. Call it a parting gift. If you take out your phones right now, what I'd like for you to do is text your first name, space, email address to 612-400-8155. That's 612-400-8155. And I tell you what you're going to get. First, you're going to be the first group to receive or to get the first copy of, let me try that again, the first chapter of our new book that we're getting ready to launch called Livin' with the Lid Up. And it'll tell you all about the story here of this picture that you see of Sam. And the second thing that you're going to get is we're doing a new online course on how to craft your story and how to share your story. So you'll be invited to an exclusive group who will participate in two live webinars that we'll be doing to help you write your story. Because we believe it's important and we all have a story to tell. Now, it has been said that next to hunger and thirst, our most basic human need is for storytelling. Thank you.